Pass the brandy over. Shall you partake?
Yeah.
This is See It Space Podboys.
Woo!
I'm Adam Ganser. With me is my intrepid, beautiful permanent co-host.
That's right. I'm Abe
Yeah.
Epperson.
Yeah. We're effervescent today, just having a great time.
Effervescent is what I am.
Yeah, that's going to be on your tombstone.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Everyone's going to be like, good pun.
Good thing he's dead.
It was too much for us.
It was too much for us.
That's what's on my tombstone.
What with his puns? Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, why not? Why not do that? Anyway, we're here recounting our experiences and thoughts of giving you thought music for a wonderful episode of our favorite anime series, Cowboy Bebop. This week's is Toys in the Attic. And did I say I was quarterbacking this? I did, right?
You're in charge.
Oh, so I just did it. Look at that.
Yeah, you're in charge of the first one.
Holy shit. So I'm okay. Well, then we better figure out real quick, what planet is this? All right, Toys in the Attic. I feel like an often recounted episode among Bopophiles as just like one of the best like one-off episodes. You know, because people tend to think of this series as having like 5 or 6 story episodes and then just a bunch of episodic ones. This is clearly an episodic one. Also, I think the only bottle episode in the series. Am I right, Abe? Is there another bottle episode that's just on the ship?
That isn't. It's the only one that's just on a ship.
Yeah.
Or just on the ship, as far as I recall.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun for that reason that we are. This is one of the only episodes where we're stuck in one place watching them go. And the episode takes an interesting format shift slightly by walking through a series of quote unquote lessons, narrative point of view narration that sort of summarizes each character's philosophy on life as they go through the events of the episode, which is kind of a fun difference in style. And it opens up right away with the Bebop has nothing to do, no one to chase, nobody to go after. And so what are they doing? Fucking nothing. Absolutely nothing. Edward is laying on a pipe. We have a strange point of view shot of some creature running through the ducts of the ship, but otherwise it seems like
colonoscopy footage.
That is what it looks like. 100%.
And there's like spider webs in there.
A rat that's scared. You know, you can imagine it. You could see it in a colonoscopy. Anyway, meantime, so Edward again sleeping on a pipe. Faye and Jet are playing what appears to be strip dice, just betting.
They're just betting on evens and odds dice.
Yeah, and Jet's betting his clothes and losing all of them.
I don't think it's a strip like poker. I think he's just giving everything away because
he keeps losing.
Because he's got issues with gambling, apparently.
Apparently, he's also very bad at knowing Faye's a liar. Deeply bad at that. You know? That was very funny to me. Meanwhile, Spike is cooking skewers with a blowtorch because even though he has a lighter, and I think they still have power in the ship, he's like, no, I want them real cooked.
And he hates it. When he eats it, it's like, I did a terrible job.
It's like a bit he comes back to several times.
He's like, God damn, I suck
like, this
at cooking.
Sucks.
But it's also to plan in there that there's a flamethrower aboard because
obviously.
that becomes important later.
It is hilarious that this episode's like, no, you need to know there's a flamethrower. You need to know that. Anyhow, so Faye cheats at the game of dice with your standard weighted die controlled by the ankle bracelet scheme, and takes the last stitch of Jet's clothing, his boxers, leaving him to forlornly plod through the back of the ship's inventory to find a blanket. Out. Yeah, it's implied wiener is shown. Yeah, it's implied.
Do you think part of his hog is mechanical?
I know it is. I don't even need to see it to know that. You know what I mean?
Like his tip got shot off, and they were like, "Well, we'll just have to do what we did with your arm, but on the tip of your penis."
Yeah, he's got a cyborg tip. Absolutely, no question.
That's how I like to think of his dick.
It's real angular. Yeah,
Mhm.
That's my most common thought about his dick.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good space dick.
Yeah. Futuristic, belongs of his time.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so he's out there covering his cybernetic dick with a blanket he finds in the back. Meanwhile, Spike, unsatisfied with his overcooked skewers, comes in and shames Faye for betting him all of his clothes, right? And
Right.
Faye, completely unapologetic in every way. Just absolutely no apology, like he should know better. It's part of the game, And also, this is just the question of what is she going to do with his clothes? She says, because she calls it she's enterprising by taking his clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's adapting.
Yeah.
She's pawning all of shit away.
Gonna make his money. Well, she says she's gonna rent him to him, which is funny, and also kind of implies they all only have one outfit. And I just thought we'd all appreciate that. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Jet goes to the back where he discovers an old refrigerator that seemingly nobody knows is on the ship. And he gets the feeling like something's coming after him, and he sees a rat, right? And then suddenly we get the sense that some creature jumps on him, right? And an alarm goes off, and the other two in mid-sentence are terrified. They run into the back of the ship, and he says he's been bitten by something. Caring companions that they are, Spike and Faye immediately, once he describes the bite mark on the back of his neck, walk away completely uninterested. They don't care. This was boring.
You got bit by a rat, suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up. Stop being a baby.
It's just a space rat. It doesn't matter.
Stop being a naked baby, Jet. Can you stop it? So they start walking away when he passes out, and they notice, he's got a really dark-looking bite mark on the back of his neck. So they bring him into the couch and start doing some science experiments.
I love their science machine.
Me too.
Anytime the Bebop needs to science, there's one machine they use that is just, and it's perfect. It's every time it tells you exactly what you need to know, or often not. Unknown, unknown poison is what it says.
I enjoy how it's simultaneously extraordinarily scientific. Like they're taking like actual slides.
Yeah,
of matter and stuff, and then
putting it through the computer AI or whatever,
and it's just complete nonsense what that computer's able to do, which is very funny. So Spike's sitting here trying to analyze the sample against known pathogens. Edward, always coming from outer space, goes to the most obvious immediate conclusion: it's a spooky alien.
And she's right.
Yes, that's what's funny about it.
She's always right.
This is what's funny about the episode to me. Everybody's right. Everybody's assertions about the way the universe works and about what's going on is correct. Everyone.
So a little bit.
Yeah, they're all a little bit right, which makes me laugh. So Jet, for instance, has this monologue before he gets bit about how, the wealthy people basically oppress the poor, but eventually they get their comeuppance, right?
Yeah, he says of it, I wrote it down, humans were meant to work and sweat for a living.
Yes.
Those trying to get rich quick or at the expense of others get divine retribution.
Yes.
And then humans forget these lessons.
That's correct.
So all of that is kind of a way of saying, that's why I'm feeling the pain of this. I tried to gamble my way into money. This is justice.
But also, it's a commentary on what happens to Faye. Right?
Yes, Faye is survival of the fittest.
Yes,
get rich quick because you're all you got.
Yes,
and it's Darwinism out there. So be as selfish as possible.
I figure you and I will probably talk at some length about that in the final segment. So I'm gonna leave the narration for then because I think that's more fun.
Okay.
Okay. Edward suggests it's spooky aliens, right? Spike does not dismiss that out of hand. His first reaction is, it could be. And Faye's like, that's horseshit. What is the actual theory? Spike's theory is it's a mutant rat that essentially is a space alien. And everyone's disappointed that no clear answer is arrived at.
And Ed's like, yeah, so an alien.
So it's an alien.
So I win.
Yeah.
And then Ed, I love, turns to Ein, picks up Ein, and is like, I'm right?
Yeah.
And Ein's like, yep. Because Ein also gets it.
Yeah, Edward often is kind of the Deus Ex Machina in this show. Edward is as
They
brilliant
all
as
are.
she is more than anybody else. She
'Cause
will
she's a
come
child.
in,
Yeah.
she'll come in and be more insightful about whatever's going on
Waka
at the right
waka,
time
yeah.
all the time. Yes, that's a thing they love to do with her. It happens in this episode
It
several times.
happens it's in all media. The fool
Yeah.
is the smart man.
Yeah, she's a
see?
Lear's fool, absolutely. So Faye retires to a tub, smirking with her sense of having properly oppressed her crewmates and secured extra cash in the form of Jets boxers. So she's sitting there in the tub and she gets bit. Right? Now we don't see it, but we know that something's creeping up on her.
Yeah, it's important.
Right. Meanwhile, Spike's still trying to solve, like, what is this pathogen? Faye comes out having been bit and is like, why me? Life is so short.
I can't die. I'm too young.
I'm too young.
It's all self-interested. Like,
very
this is
funny.
not fair.
Yeah, this is not fair. So, and then she passes out and we're like, oh, she got bit too. So that's when Spike and Edward are both like, time to get into the shit. Right? Spike gears up. And we're doing a
straight
full-on
out of Commando.
Alien. Yeah. We're doing a full-on Alien now. Like he gets a net, he gets his blowtorch and his like goggles where he's able to see heat signatures.
Thermal.
Yes.
Yeah, the thermals.
He was trying to test it on Ed and Ein, but Ed remembered she was a child and went running off after Ein for no reason.
Yeah.
So everyone gets separated. Is the point?
So, yeah.
So, and I believe at that point is the eye catch, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right.
I want to make sure I'm right about that.
Also, he's got a little foil, a little sword with more of his food. Takes a bite, hates it.
That was my favorite joke, that he took another bite of it.
Yeah.
I loved it. No, so the eye catch is after we see that Faye's been bit. Like, then we get the eye catch. Okay. Yeah. So Ed and Ein kind of split off into their own unit, walking around looking for the alien. And Ed seems to be, just having the best time. Okay.
I love this because they also show in the background little world building things we like to mention. Her little smiley face emoji graffiti is all around the ship. She's just been marking her territory. I just love it. It just makes it fun. It makes it feel like she is still a child, obviously, and they're fine with it. Even if they're like, stop doing it, they don't wash it off.
They never, they always accept Ed for who she is. That's kind of a thing I really like about them. They don't like, hey, shut up, kid. Except Faye does it a little bit, but the rest of the crew, they accept her for who she is, which is pretty cool. So Ein and Ed split up because Ein gets distracted, and then Ein gets bit, and Spike notices Ed or Ein passed out and it just has a very funny dialogue with, what happened to you? What happened to your animal instincts? And he's just deeply disappointed.
Slaps the dog a little bit. It's just very funny because Ein's like super conked out.
Yeah. It's like, why? You failed, Ein.
You failed. Okay, so I also like this. I'll just bring it up here because it's not really theory or anything. It's just funny to me, which is that it makes total sense that Spike is doing that because Ein, a data dog, is book smart, not street smart. Because he's a fucking nerd, dude.
Ein's all theory. Come on, man.
Yeah, so good. But and then of course Spike sees the goo monster, the slime, which moves super fast.
The slime monster is essentially a magic blob. It's super fast. It's about the size of a fist.
It can take bullets.
It can take bullets. It can take being nuked with his flamethrower. Yeah. It's a magic blob. So Spike begins the sort of slow death battle with this blob. After it chases him, he like shoots at it. I believe he hits it. It does no
he
damage.
Does a super cool maneuver.
Yes. Yeah, where he shoots
flips
backwards.
Around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool.
But that's after he sets up because we have to get zero gravity first.
Oh, forgive me, that's right. So once he finds Ein, he's like, now we got to get fucking serious.
Right.
So
he bails.
He programs the ship to like autopilot to Mars. He gears all the way up. He gets the heat vision goggles and like he's ready to go. He's going down the hall, and he sees the blob and basically tosses 2 gas grenades right? And sort of like, I guess he wants to like poison the atmosphere of that little sectioned off area. And he sits outside of it with like the porthole closed and tries to have a cigarette with his flamethrower, burns it to ash and decides, I'm going to get my lighter. I need it. And so he goes back in the gas container.
Or this isn't working. The flamethrower idea was a bad idea.
Right. So he goes back in the container to get his lighter, which makes me laugh. By the way, he just sort of assumes that Ed has like been bitten somewhere. We don't see what happened to Ed.
I'll go into that a little bit later.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. So, Spike essentially, he has a shootout with the thing. He misses it. He switches to the flamethrower and like manages to scorch the thing flat against the wall. And briefly, it's like, oh, he got it. Like he burned the shit out of it.
It's stopped moving.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he realizes that it had a smell that actually made him hungry, which was insane. And he realizes the fridge. A year ago, he'd had a Ganymede lobster that he was like saving for himself. Yeah. And he stored it in this fridge that he forgot all about. And the connection we're supposed to make is that apparently this thing did evolve from the fungus in this fridge.
Right.
This heinous fridge, right? So
some bacteria got fucked the fungi or something.
So what's funny is ultimately everybody was right. His weird theory about mutating was right. Edward's theory about space monster was right.
It's technically an alien.
Yeah. So it's this funny, like everybody was right situation. So Spike's like, okay, I got to get the hell rid of this fridge, right? He loads it up in the loading dock, a la Aliens, right? And he's trying to basically release the catch so that it'll get shot out into space, which is great. As he's doing it, the alien shows up again. It's not dead.
It's on the fridge. Yeah.
It bites his arm as the fridge is careening into space.
Clock.
Yes, of course.
There's zero gravity. Everything's floating, and he's passing out.
Yes. So he manages, of course, for the fridge to get ejected into space as the doors close, even though he almost gets shot out into space with it. And for a little while, everyone's just unconscious on the ship.
Yeah, we get Tchaikovsky's Waltz of the Flowers from 2001 fame. Dun, 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 dun.
It's so good. It's so good. A fun little pause, and then we realize Ed is actually asleep because the alien
was never bitten.
Yeah, never bitten. The alien just shows up next to Ed. And Ed, in her sleep, decides, I'm hungry, and eats it.
Pudding.
She eats it. Presumably, nothing happens to her, ever. And, while everyone sleeps the night away, the Bebop careens back onto Mars, and the episode ends.
Goes to orbit, and the floating horror fridge sprays its mutant bacteria all
into
across
space.
the space. Yeah.
God only knows how many worlds are ruined by that decision. But we don't find that out because it's too late for this episode.
And we get the rare The End.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
Which makes fun at the end of the thing. We get instead of See You Space Cowboy.
Yeah.
Because it's a bottle episode.
That's right.
That was the end of that story,
whole thing. We'll never see anything else about it. Abe, I got to say, I think it's time for us to push this guy.
Pushing the sky. Ow! Well done, sir.
I've been
well
chatting
done.
a lot. Thank you. I think it's your turn now, yeah?
Yeah, so Pushing the Sky is this section where we want to talk about, an aspect of this session's execution, whether it's directorial or editing, that we found to be particularly well done. So we'll each take a moment or a sequence and dissect why we think it's awesome. And I'll start first. So this one I wanted to talk about editing and overlapping beats, and I'm glad you mentioned how they navigated the Ed is knocked unconscious or sleeping deal, because this episode is like a masterclass, in my opinion, about layering moments on top of each other. Everyone but Ein is bit off screen. Yeah, I guess Ein like falls on the dog, but like Jet and Faye, we kind of learn with the people who approach and find them. and obviously we get the spike at the end. And Ed's face, that's kind of cool. We get that, kind of horror thing of like something happened off screen. And it's these like little editorial events that are just kind of like fun, kind of like we're shuffling cards, kind of getting a non-linear version of chronological events. Which is fairly cool for 1998, honestly.
Yeah.
That you could do that and that would be enough, but obviously the 2000s happened. We like non-linearism was a crazy thing, and now we kind of anticipate these kinds of maneuvers.
It was
I'll see even
a fresh idea in the mid 90s because of Pulp Fiction. People were pretty excited about
like
that. Yeah,
exactly. And I'd say it's even more than that, though. This episode, it's a device for that reveal later with Ed.
Yeah,
like so many like Ocean's 11, like will show the planning and the heist at the same time. This actually does the exact opposite of what Ocean's 11 does editorially, which is you get comfortable with the maneuver that the slime gets the drop on some, we cut away. And we learn that what happened later in a later scene, usually the next scene, but from a different perspective. And they do this in the Ein attack to serve as kind of a placeholder for our expectations that Ed also got bit. So when the final reveal, also set up with Spike saying stuff like Ed must have gotten bit as well when he finds Ed's goggles, even though we know that they just fell off of Ed's head because Ed's a child and was doing a somersault,
or like, whatever.
Has nothing to do with being bitten. But you get that because Spike believes it. We believe it a little bit. And then we hold off shooting any form of shot with Ed. And we get the fact that we see in the, Waltz of Flowers section, when the zero gravity is turned on as well, you see Ed's legs. So you're like, okay, so Ed is unconscious.
Yeah, so you make an assumption.
You make all these assumptions, and so it gets a bigger laugh when we reveal that she was just sleeping. It's just a simple system that builds your expectation, and then the breaking of it for a dumb joke, which happens to resolve the story because she eats the monster at the same time, which is like some Preston Sturges bullshit, dude. That's so great.
It's great. Also, this show is really good about cluing you in about when you need to take something seriously and when you don't. Like, I think this episode is a masterclass on letting you know it's going to be hyper stylized, but don't take it seriously with like careful joke placement, as opposed to Ballad of Fallen Angels or Jupiter Jazz or some of the other ones that are like, there's no jokes here. We're going for the tragedy.
Tonally, it's like, and they do it with music, and they do it with pacing, and
but also with
how much Ed is in the thing.
Yep, that's right. But also with just where the jokes are. Like they're good at, like, he bites the skewer again right before he goes off for the big hunt, and it's like, okay, I get it.
After you did this homage to like the load up, scene, it's like take the wind out of your own sails is a good maneuver. It
lets you not feel stressed about what's going to happen, which I think is good for this episode because it's playing real intensely with the alien vibes, right? And it's a bit of a tone shift for the series in a good way. So, okay, I'm going to do a very tiny bit of director piece theater for this, because what stood out to me is the problem of what a bottle episode does to a show like this without having like new locales or space fights and shit to do. Like, how do you make it stylish, right? Like, what are the things that you can do? And ultimately, they were building toward the release of the fridge out the duct or whatever, out the portal. And they do that with very careful low-angle, high-angle shots. Like, that is sort of the system of the show, of this episode. Like, how can we do low-angle, high-angle shots as often as we can to get a sense of style? It's not like Bebop never does that. They like the high angles and low angles, but this episode, you'd be surprised how much of it takes place in high angles and low angles, right? Part of that is a feature of they designed this monster that is either in the ceiling ducts or on the floor beneath their eye line. So we have to look from a low angle or a high angle, right? But again, as we say in director piece theater, every single movie that has a camera system is building toward using that camera system in a climactic way for the most important emotional moments. And here I would say it's the moment where is Spike going to get ejected into space along with the fridge, which is shot from pure overhead and pure underneath.
Which is interesting because it's on the bow of the ship.
Yes.
Horizontally. So but space has no angle,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Which is fantastic. You mentioned this also in the session 1 of the series because how they shoot cockpits.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing when you're in space because I think there's the zero gravity element of it. And the bottle episode aspect that you're mentioning, where it's like we have to make this same space looks interesting.
Yeah.
It's a very valuable choice to be like, let's make this a horror. Let's do a horror one. And that's also a genre that has a lot of these kind of, bizarre angles,
For
too.
sure. They also do 2 camera moves in it that are really hard to do in an animated format, because especially one that's not using 3D assets very often. The first one is they do a vertigo shot when Faye is walking down the oscillating corridor. They actually manage
2001 centrifuge.
Mm-hmm, yes, they actually manage to get the subject getting further away from the backdrop as we zoom in, which is again the vertigo shot. It's used most famously in Vertigo, but also Jaws and some other places.
Yep.
And Lord of the Rings uses it a few times when Frodo realizes the Nazgul are here. It's a cool shot. It's just harder to do when you actually don't have 3-dimensional space to work in or a real camera to capture stuff.
Yeah, you need to have scaling parallax, I believe is what they call it, which is you have to generate perspective warping.
Yes. And both of these are for realizations, which tells you how important camera moves are for realization in film. The other one is when Spike realizes, oh shit, it was the lobster in the fridge. It actually does a 180 dolly around him.
Yeah,
right. And it's
a circle dolly,
pretty convincing. But again, a circle dolly is a thing. It's very difficult to pull off when you only have 2-dimensional assets. And they do a pretty nice job, I would say, of recreating that move.
They're really good. I mean, it's really the
backdrop stuff,
background switching, like the Michael Bay shot or whatever.
Yeah,
it's it's about getting the lensing right on that, which is tough to do because it's like shooting a panorama, but panoramas are often wide angles in order to get max bucks from it. So imagine a non-wide angle panorama. They had to draw
tricky.
As a background.
You have to be really determined in this medium to achieve it because it takes a lot more work to create that effect than laying down a circle dolly and just ripping the shot off, which, by the way, is also not a fast process, but it's a lot faster than actually drawing it in an animated
It's
short.
Using the real world has to create perspective out of nothing.
Yeah, so really
which
cool.
has always been animation's issue,
Really cool camera work in this episode, I think designed to continue the sense of stylization, even though we're not going out into the universe too much.
Right on.
Anyway, knowing that, I think it's time for us to carry that weight.
Yes.
We're kind of zipping through it today.
I mean, we're on schedule. We're on schedule here.
Great. Great.
So, okay. Since you talked last, I think we're going to talk about the same things.
Let's see.
Are we going to talk about how these lessons...
Yeah, the lessons.
How they inform the larger stories of these guys? Huh?
I love that. Do you disagree that everybody's right?
I think
that stood out to me.
Right and wrong is not how I would put things.
Yeah.
Let's say that we're all dancing atoms in the universe, and sometimes
of course you would.
Sometimes we get stuff right. Sometimes we hurt people.
Abe's trying to Obi-Wan us this shit right now. What I told you was true from a certain point of view.
Yeah. No, they're all kind of right because it's certain instances. This valuation of reality can have benefits. But there's other instances where these clinging to these kind of attitudes would be a disservice to you and others.
Completely.
Does that answer your fucking question? Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
I enjoy your raucous rejection of my premise. I only mean, when I say right, I mean the episode validates all of their points of view in some way.
One moment, yeah.
Which is fun. Like, I love that idea.
Yep.
Anyway, please, Abe, I want you to lead us into the chat you want to have.
I'll lead the discussion by let's first examine the base material.
Great.
So lesson 1, Jet. They're all done in narration. Everyone gets a moment of their, narration where they say, this is how I've learned things. And we kind of already talked about Jet and Phase. Jet is basically, there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And he believes that divinity will smite those who do wrong.
Yeah, there's a karma in the universe.
Faith in order.
Yes.
Then we get lesson 2, Faye. Life is chaos and you got to lie and cheat and steal to get yours. Faith in self.
Yep.
And then we get lesson 3, Ed. Follow strangers.
Loved it. That was thrilling.
Good thing for your child to believe. But I think that's more or less a tagline for faith and curiosity.
Yeah,
or
intuition.
Optimism for the next chapter of your life, right?
Mhm.
He's young. He's Ed. Ed wants experience. And then lesson 4, which I could talk about probably the whole time.
Great.
Which is, I have a weird interpretation. Obviously, the first one is lesson 4. What's different about lesson 4 is the title card hits, and then we get the third act of the whole show.
That's
and
right.
then we get at the tail end, we finally get narration, which, from Spike, which, brings it in tune with all the others. And he says the lesson here to learn, almost to summarize all of this that you just seen, don't leave things in the fridge. And I think that a lot of people interpret that to be that's what it is. I would posit that I have a different interpretation, or you could see things in a different way.
Sure.
But if you were to take lesson 4 as what Bebop is kind of displaying, like in a stylistic way, the obvious one is the metaphor for don't hold on to your baggage, or don't let things from your past fester and sedate your present self. Don't leave things in the fridge. And I think that's an interesting interpretation. But I also like the one where you look at his final narration as kind of a cover up of his other actions. Like you listen to what he does, not really what he says. And then you get the reason that they made that lesson 4 happen earlier becomes a lot more interesting, because what is he doing when lesson 4 pops up? He's doing an action, which is his backup plan, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to type into the autopilot, make sure I'm going to be reliant on this autopilot, in fact, in order to save me in case I fuck up, because I know that I can fuck up. So have a backup plan. And that's a lot more interesting to me if you interpret lesson 4 as that's actually what lesson 4 was. He's just deflecting at the end and saying, don't leave things in the fridge. That will cause problems later. If he knew that wisdom, he wouldn't be who he is. So I think he's lying.
That's interesting.
Or at least to himself.
I don't think Spike is unaware of what's motivating him. I think he's unwilling to do what it would. I don't think he's willing to do what it would cost him to not leave things in the fridge. I think he likes the pain that he's in some way. Like there's a romantic sort of stasis that he's in.
He maybe, as a defense mechanism, that might be true. I think so.
Like there's a self-deception going on with
exactly
him that isn't, but it's not ignorant self-deception. It's he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. He just prefers it this way. Yes.
Yeah. Also, another thing that occurs to me as you were talking, because I love what you said. Again, I think all of these people are right about the way this universe works and the way that their stories play out. Like all of them have something in the fridge, right? Like if you're going to use that metaphor for they're dogged by a choice they made in the past that they haven't resolved.
Yep.
And everything that comes from the beginning of the show to the end is them dealing with it. All of them have that problem, right? All of them have the problem of trying to get ahead and then being struck down, facing a kind of retribution for that Jet puts out in the world. That's essentially why all of them are stuck on this ship, because they all did that. All of them are living in a world where they have to be dog eat dog. We deceive, we don't, like we deceive
Survival
others.
Of the fittest is
they're
a truism.
bounty hunters.
Yeah.
You know, like this is how they live their life, and they also willfully deceive themselves. And the show's about them coming to terms with that. And as silly as it is, follow a stranger is a thing they literally do every episode of this show.
It's not just
Every
Ed who's
episode.
following Bebop. It's they are all wanderers
Yeah.
looking to be pilgrims in the next story. Yeah.
Being led by people they don't know into the truth. Like Spike described in a couple episodes ago, his like modus operandi of being pure water, right? Which is entirely reactive. And every time Spike follows a bounty or solves a case or whatnot, it's always him being like sort of chasing some strange lead, and it gets him to what he needs because he knows that's how the universe works somehow, right? Like he has that sense of this is a person I should follow. This is a lead I should follow. So there's just truth to all of it, and I love
There's
that.
There's truth to a lot of it. I think it's interesting because it makes sense to me that you're like, I'm into it because you have a very glasses half full version of faith, right? Faith in anything. And all these people have faith in something. And I would say that wouldn't be unfair to, diagnose your opinion to say that the reason that they're all right at some times, because if you put your faith into anything, even the quote unquote wrong thing, you'll be right twice a day kind of idea. But you put your faith in the right stuff and you can get closer to, being correct in all of your assessments of the world.
That's true.
So, which I think is fair. I'm not denying that kind of interpretation of how you should pursue the world. But I do think it's interesting that they are all faith-based to the point that if you trying to extend it to his logical conclusion, you get fucked up ways of harming people.
You can.
They all have the capacity to harm each other. And in fact, in the case of almost all of them, they have. Either they've been the one who's been harmed or they've harmed someone else with their, selfishness, with their need to have the world into right and wrong kind of passages.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there another way that...
on an autopilot.
Okay. You think the autopilot doesn't hurt anybody?
I think the autopilot, if you look at a part of lesson 4 as that autopilot, the reliance on an autopilot is a way for Spike to say, I can be reckless because I have a backup, because there's someone who will take care of me. I'm supported by Bebop, literally. And I think that's funny because that shows the kind of lack of, like, yes, the self-awareness you're talking about, where he's like, I know who I am, I know what kind of wild beast I am. But at the same instance, and we're going to see this next episode when he literally tells Jet to fuck off.
Yes, he does.
But he himself can't get away from the fact that community has been a part of him. It has nurtured him from Julia to Vicious to the Syndicate to Bebop. He's never free from it. And whereas Faye despises it, Jet embraces it. He's reliant on it, and expresses a not a hatred, but like a I don't need it kind of attribute.
He thinks. I mean, that's also what Faye communicates while drinking with Gren, which we're going to talk about. But I would just point out to you that autopilot is still faith in the ship.
Yeah, exactly. That's why all these people have faith in something. They have to say, when it comes down to a lesson, there's a propagandist kind of thing that has to happen.
Because we all do.
Yeah,
Like,
it just reminds me of the, like when they have the super at the end that has easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
And at the time we're supposed to think, oh, that's like a whimsical, beautiful expression of Spike's kind of water-like treatment of the world and his adaptive nature. This one is a little bit more of the negative elements. Like sometimes if you're like that, you're a people pleaser or, stuff like that. Where there's negative traits can be installed into someone who's like easy come, easy go.
I think Cowboy Bebop is very good at validating as many perspectives as it can and resisting easy conclusions to any of these perspectives it's offering. Like I would say, and I think you agree, that these characters have contradictory beliefs. Like internally they have contradictory beliefs, and they contradict with each other. and yet
Yes.
the show still manages to validate them all, I think the way you were saying, sometimes, and then show how that doesn't work sometimes.
I think that's why
and I love that about it.
I think that's why we all love Bebop, because it's the kind of one where it's like, let's put like politically, let's like align all these people into castes and like say like, what do you think of that guy and that guy? And a lot of TV shows, a lot of stories are about that, is the good guys and the bad guys. This one is emphatically about like the scum and villainy of the galaxy.
Yeah, they live extreme lives,
but it's a wider story about there are no small stories, which you've talked about a lot, and by acknowledging that and making the thrust of your thing about that and making it as like an anthology piece for a unique kind of futuristic world, when you embrace that, like in the way that Star Trek embraces, which they make a reference to in this episode when they go like space log 2, you can define things as wrong or right depending on where your perspective of something is. Like it's kind of like what Last of Us is, if people are watching that right now, is all about, is about like whose trauma trumps. Are we not just hurting all of ourselves by believing that this person is evil and this person is evil? This Cowboy Bebop is so emphatically that there is no true evil. Someone can be vicious, but not really evil. You know, like
it humanizes everyone. Yes, they're all both things.
They are. I think vicious is one of those things where they kind of try to make, but even then they like. There's later episodes where it's like, oh, I'm kind of putting up an act of being like this badass edgelord guy. Like I'm not really that.
Jupiter Jazz 2 is clearly a decision to humanize Vicious a little bit, which I think was a good decision.
Yeah, I especially think the Titan stuff that we're going to get in the second part, which that's in 2 episodes from now. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but like that will do that. But the point is, like you're presenting with all these, look at all these faith-based lessons that like, you know, basically tell us who they are. Not only are they kind of hypocritical to themselves sometimes, because not all people are perfect.
Everyone believes something, and that thing ends up being true in some ways because it ends up being an articulation of what your life's about. I decide my life's about this. That's the lesson, right? And the lesson becomes a reinforcement of what I am and what I already believe. We all do this.
Yeah.
Right? We define the world. Hey, this is how it works. I operate as though it works this way. If the outcome's what I want, I was right. And if the outcome's not, I probably still was right. I just exclude that from the data set.
Yeah, sometimes we do that. Yeah,
we all
and
do that. Come on, we're all doing that.
Yeah, and but like Bebop tries to operate on this like not higher tier, but it's like says like you can forgive yourself for that. You can forgive others for other things. You know, like there's just so many stories going on that you've been the villain and you've been the hero so many times.
I enjoy the idea that these people who have some antithetical worldviews like this, antithetical ways of operating, can actually be useful to each other instead of having to be in conflict. Like I think most shows would put them in conflict for that reason. This show believes in change through the School of Hard Knocks in a way that I also believe. So it matches up with Adam's life lesson in some ways. Like, hey, Faye is necessary for Jet to grow. Jet is necessary for Spike to grow. You know, Ed is necessary for, you know, and so on, right? Like they all are sort of interdependent on the other person's very keyed in wisdom. Very, you know, they have all a small piece of the picture, maybe is another way to say it. And I like that. It works for me.
It's beautiful.
It is.
I like the way it presents the world as well.
Yeah.
As we're all flavors of the same resonance.
Yeah. There's a kind of plurality that's being achieved here. And I dig that.
It's one of the best ways to show be human by presenting us all as lovable wretches.
I totally agree.
It's cool.
We've had a wonderful time. This has been great soaring around the universe with you yet again, my friend.
Join us for next month. We're going to jump into the first part of Jupiter Jazz, which is like the midpoint of the series, by the way, more or less, once that's complete. It's a 2-parter that jumps into Spike and Vicious's history, and we get to see some like sweet Faye like understanding, sweet jet understanding of what
Oh, yeah.
really is a spike when you get down
It's
to
gonna
it.
be great.
Thanks for listening. 3, 2, 1, let's go.